What's up guys, Nathan here. In Delve League, I played a lot of builds. Because of this, I feel more confident than ever putting together a league starter list for patch 3.5, Betrayal. The following builds are called league starters because they're easy to level, scale reasonably well, and require little to no currency to get off the ground. Additionally, I chose builds that are simple and beginner friendly, so any brand new Path of Exile players can pick these up with no problems at all. However, unlike most League starter videos that touch on 3 or 4 builds, I went balls to the wall with 13 diverse and powerful options. Unfortunately, that means I won't be going super into detail for each of these builds, but I've made sure to include all the necessary guides and path of building pastebins in the description below. Just make sure you stick around until the end of the video, as I'll be ranking all of these builds by cost, map clear, and bossing potential. Enough with the intro though, let's jump into the video. Jack of all trades, champion. Referred to by some as the Mathil Pog champion, this build is a template more than anything else. It comes with some respectable defenses such as high life, armor, and perma fortify, and its damage will keep scaling the more currency you throw at it. The reason why I don't have a specific skill attached to this build is simply because of how damn versatile it is. Because of these two ascendancy nodes here, Conqueror and Worthy Foe, you can go all in on crit, which makes pretty much any melee skill a viable option. You can use Reave, Blade Flurry, Lacerate, Double Strike, Molten Strike, and so on. The only important note on this build is that since stat sticks are getting nerfed, there's a chance that two-handed champion might actually end up being better than dual wielding. I'll update the path of building links as necessary, but just know this is a fantastic option for any melee skill, no matter the budget. Baron Zombiemancer. If you're interested in playing a summoner, this zombie-focused Baron Necromancer might be right up your alley. It's got decent clear speed, decent boss damage, and fantastic survivability. The only catch is you'll need a couple of key uniques, namely the Baron and Montragruel's Grasp, to make it work. I haven't played the build myself for a while, but I'll be linking an excellent forum guide written by Clooney is Best Batman. He's got videos of the build doing Shaper, Guardians, and other endgame content. Herald of Purity and Dominating Blow Guardian. When I decided to play this build, I had no guide to go off of, very little experience with minion builds, and literally zero experience with Dominating Blow. However, through my own crude machinations, I was able to craft an absurdly cheap build that does great boss damage, is satisfying to clear with, and is nearly unkillable. Without much effort or investment, I pushed it to level 90 and farmed tier 16 Guardians. Because of how surprisingly easy these accomplishments were, I highly recommend this build to anyone looking to complete high-end content as early in the league as possible. Toxic Rain and Herald of Agony Pathfinder. Moving away from melee-oriented builds, we have the amazing Toxic Rain, or Caustic Arrow, Pathfinder. This build can also be played as a Trickster, Deadeye, or any other Ascendancy if you want to focus on Herald of Agony. In fact, the only reason why I'm not including pure Herald of Agony builds, like Life Gain on Hit Gladiator, is because there's a small chance they'll be nerfed. Luckily, even if they do get nerfed, that will have little to no impact on this impressively well-rounded Pathfinder. Molten Strike Juggernaut. Honestly, the Juggernaut Ascendancy is insane no matter how you build it. However, as far as league starters go, you can't go wrong with Molten Strike. The map clear is solid, the single target is amazing, and the survivability is through the roof. My personal favorite is the dual Nebulock variation, but as a league starter, I'm going to recommend Gorno DD's Sword and Board build. With this build, there's very little in the game you'll struggle with. The only downside is that Molten Strike has been so good for so long that it might be due for a nerf. But as always, I'll be sure to keep you updated in the description below. Blade Vortex Chieftain. While you may be more familiar with the Elementalist or Occultist variations of this build, I chose to feature the Chieftain because it's cheaper, does better boss damage, and is a little bit tankier. Blade Vortex was recently buffed in patch 3.3 and has since risen to become the most popular skill for high-level characters in softcore Delve. For good reason. It's fast, does absurd damage, and allows for a relaxed, shield charge focused playstyle. If you haven't played Blade Vortex since the buffs, I highly recommend you check it out. Totems Hierophant. With Arc being one of the strongest skills in the game right now, and Totems being notoriously good for league starting, it's no wonder this build made it into the video. I personally league started Delve with this build, and I played it to level 89 and through all yellow maps. I definitely could have kept going, but the Totem playstyle was starting to get boring. In fact, that really is the only downside to this build. Totems are not for everyone. The delay between seeing your enemy, placing your totem, and waiting for your totem to start casting takes some getting used to. And the fact that you aren't killing anything yourself kind of robs you of some satisfaction. However, since the build is strong, I still highly recommend you try it out. Maybe you'll end up liking it, and then you'll have a fantastic build ready to carry you to endgame. Glacial Cascade Mines Saboteur. Speaking of notoriously great league starters, traps and mines are just as viable as totems, and one of my personal favorites is Glacial Cascade Mines. The map clear and survivability are respectable, but where this build really shines is the single target. Not only do the mine nodes on the passive tree provide crazy amounts of damage, but the inherent playstyle means you'll be front-loading all of this damage, which can result in some crazy instant boss kills. Like this. Granted, you'll need some good gear before the build reaches those levels of insanity, but you'll still be able to comfortably farm bosses at the start of the league, which is exactly what this build excels at. Essence Drain Trickster. While maybe not as powerful as some of the other options on this list, Essence Drain will always have a spot in League Starter videos for me. It requires no investment, is newcomer friendly, and can kill several screens worth of enemies with just 2 button presses. Plus, although it doesn't scale as well on its own to be considered a top tier boss killer, you can respec into an Indigan variation when you get a little more currency, and suddenly you'll be ready to take on the endgame. Ngamahu'S Flame Cyclone Chieftain. While we're on the topic of auto-include league starters, I'd be remiss not to mention this build. It's tanky, does great boss damage, and most importantly, it doesn't even require a 6-link. Cyclone is a fun skill that usually requires a good amount of currency to hold up in the endgame, but thanks to the unique axe Ngamahu'S Flame, we only have to use it as a trigger. The way it works is every time our Cyclone hits, we have a 20% chance to trigger a mini Molten Strike-like attack. Factor in how many times Cyclone hits per second, and you've got a recipe for huge damage on a tiny budget. Enki's Self-Cast Arc Elementalist. If you're new to Path of Exile and just looking for something simple and reliable to get into the game with, look no further than this build. It clears quickly, is absurdly cheap, and is a great option for prequel memers looking to roleplay as Darth Sidious. However, the main reason why I'm including this build is because it has one of the best forum guides ever written, and Enki is still actively answering questions at the time of this video's making. If you are a complete beginner, following his guide won't just explain the build, it'll help teach you how to play Path of Exile. Arc Trapper Saboteur. Yes, I'm aware this is the third Arc build I'm featuring today, and no, I'm not sorry for that. The skill was buffed in 3.3 along with traps in general, and 3.4's light nerfs to this build did next to nothing to limit its viability as a league starter. Additionally, the Saboteur Ascendancy is a great choice for beginners with its free blind, big regen, and even bigger damage. The only downside of this build is that traps can be an acquired taste, maybe not as much as totems or minions, but I personally never found them satisfying. Infernal Blow Slayer. Although you won't find this build recommended in any other League starter video, I really wanted to fit it in here. The clear is so satisfying, Slayer Leech feels so good, and you'll zoom through maps one-shotting packs left and right. There are a couple of downsides to this build though. The single target isn't great, and it's a little more gear dependent than other builds in this video. Because of this, I can't blindly recommend this build to complete beginners, but it's still a viable option if you're willing to farm a little bit of currency before taking it to the end game. Now, if you're still with me and can't decide which of these builds you want to try out, you're in for a treat. I took the time to rank all of these builds on a scale from 1 to 5 by their startup cost, map clear, and bossing potential. Here it is. A couple of notes while you look at this though. The cost category isn't how much it costs to min max, but how much it costs to get you started, or at least into yellow maps. Additionally, bossing potential is a combination of single target damage and ease of use, whereas map clear is a combination of survivability and area of effect damage. Lastly, don't be too put off by the arbitrary ratings I've come up with here. All these builds are excellent league starters. I just wanted to help people make decisions as efficiently as possible. If you want to know more about these builds, please check out the description below. I'll be linking all relevant information, guides, and path of building pastebins for each build, as well as a downloadable spreadsheet with all of my personal rankings. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and an awesome start for Betrayal League.
Thank you!
Good news, everyone. I still don't have any more Patreon supporters. Just real human. Literally nothing's changed. Well, I actually do have some actual real good news. I actually, I'm getting some nice ad revenue from the last video, so I don't feel nearly as stressed to make this Patreon thing work, because honestly, it's not gonna work, probably, in all likelihood. I mean, who cares at this point? If you really do like what I do, please support me on Patreon. If you don't, or you can't afford it, I don't care either way. Just keep watching my videos. That's honestly way more important than having more names on this page. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.